Today on the Quilt Show, we're going to manifest a quilt artist who blends ethnic fabrics with American cotton. I think it's working. I think it's working. And now, your hosts for the Quilt Show, Alex Anderson and Ricky Timms.
Welcome to the Quilt Show, everyone. I'm very excited about today's show because the color, you walk in here and you're walking into a color wall, you know?
I walked in and the lights were on and I went, wow, it was really exciting.
But we are not going to be working with an American textile artist.
No, today we've got a guest from Guatemala. Please welcome to the Quilt Show, Priscilla Bianchi.
Yay, Priscilla.
Hello, Alex.
Oh my gosh,
Hello,
it has
Ricky.
been such a joy to already get to know you a little bit, and boy, do you have stories to tell.
Well, I'm delighted to be here. I mean, this is wonderful. And yes, I have a few stories.
Well, one of the things I want to say, and I was saying this when we were in the dressing room, you weren't in there, anything south of the border down just absolutely gets me going with textiles because there is nothing else like it.
The patterns,
Nothing.
the textures,
The
colors.
color,
Yes.
the color,
Yes.
right?
And there are many color combinations that you wouldn't even think
Exactly.
of putting those things together, and they look amazing.
Exactly, exactly. So I want to take just a look at a couple of your quilts and then dive into it so people have an understanding of what we are talking about, okay? So let's take a look at the first quilt, please.
Okay, this is called We Complement Each Other because it has
Compliments.
a lot of complementary colors in it. And this has a very nice story because the very first year that I started quilting, and I'll tell you about that later.
Sure.
I only used American cottons because they are stable and easier to work with. But then after a year, I'd learned all the techniques, and I did my homework and paid my dues. So I started working with Guatemalan fabrics. And I went to the market one day, and this guy had a basket brimming with scraps of huipiles, which is like the blouse that I'm wearing now, the blouse of the Mayan woman. And I was like hyperventilating. I was so excited. And I bought the whole basket, and I knew I had to put it in a very simple composition so that it let the fabric be
Have
the
a voice.
prima donna.
The prima donna is a great word.
So
Yes.
let's talk about Guatemala. You've got weaving there. What else? You got embroidery,
Yes.
quilting.
Guatemala? No quilting at all.
Okay.
Guatemala is very famous for our textile tradition, which is a Mayan Guatemalan textile tradition, and it's mainly hand weaving and embroidery. That is really big.
All right, let's just rewind this story for a moment, okay? Because you are Guatemalan.
Yes, I am.
And you became a quilter. How did you become a quilter, and when did that happen?
Okay, so let me tell you. It's a not so long story. When I was 4 years old, my mom taught me to sew using an old Singer-Treadle sewing machine that used to be her grandmother's.
Okay.
Then when I was 11, she sent me to a class where they taught me to use paper patterns to make clothes. So for decades, I made my own clothes. And then in 1997,
Okay.
I was looking for a different thing to do because I had been working in human resources. I had my own consulting firm, and I was getting tired of the corporate world, and I was looking for alternatives, and this book fell into my lap.
I recognize this book, by the way.
This book
Yes.
changed your life, to be honest.
It did.
So tell us about that.
I found the book, it fell into my lap. I read it from cover to cover in 2 days and started pulling out fabrics, cutting pieces, putting my first quilt together. And I remember that urge to get this over with and finished so I could so I could start on the next one
Okay.
and the next one.
And I want to say real quickly, it's Charm Quilts by Beth Donaldson.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so this was it. This is the holy
They
grail.
made the trick.
All right, so,
And then-
so give us an idea of how many quilts you made, like in the first couple of years.
One Sunday afternoon, I was with one of my ex-husbands.
One of your ex-husbands?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Moving on.
and I told him, you know what? This art quilting thing is going to stay with me for the rest of my life. I love it. It has absolutely everything in a beautiful package. The fabrics, the colors, sewing, working with my hands, creating new things. So anyway, 6 months later, I quit my day job because it was getting in the way of my quilting.
Oh, nobody
There
knows
you
that.
go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's the way it should be.
I want to go
Yes.
to the next quilt.
Okay, all right.
So let's take a look at the next quilt. Please tell. Oh, yeah. This is the one I think we're all going to fight
Okay.
over.
This, I mean, because of the way that Guatemalan textiles are woven, they have a lot of stripes. So I work with a lot of stripes. And this shows all the ways in which you can cut the stripes depending on where they are going to make all of these very intricate looking, like optical illusion designs
Yes.
that are really very simple to make. It's
Okay.
the fabric that makes the quilt.
Now, were these both that we just looked at older pieces?
Oh,
Newer,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
Older. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Because I first started very close to American tradition, and little by little I became more liberated.
Well,
That's a good way to put it.
Then let's look at the next one. And I want to point out again that these quilts have American textiles in it and Guatemalan. And
Yes.
that's the trick right
Yes.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, because Guatemalan textiles can be a little thicker, so it's a very good mix to put them with a thinner American.
All right, so tell us about this.
Okay, this one, I made the striped fabric to make this one, and I like that the diamonds are the uniting element in the design, and they have all sorts of different things going on in the center.
Okay, okay. Now let's go to the next one. I'm telling you, this is just, I feel sorry that everybody can't see this, in person,
know.
because
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I got my eyes up
Yeah.
on close, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
This is African cross. And it's called like that because I was in the midst of a very geometric phase. Everything was very exact and precise. And I started free cutting these blocks. And I didn't like them at first because they were like not exact, not precise.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Improv.
They were improv and moving and curvy. And so I put them away for like 2 years. And then one day when I went to Africa in 2004 to teach and exhibit, I found exactly what I was going to do with them.
Okay, and is there African fabric in that?
There's a little bit of that.
Okay,
yes.
because that's a completely different
Yes.
textile.
And the thing is that I mix and match all kinds of ethnic fabrics that have that same rustic, handmade feel to them. And I also use hand dyes and commercial cottons that look handmade.
Right, right.
So Priscilla, would you say that Guatemala is like a mecca for quilting?
Well, not really.
Who is involved in the entire scene of quilting in Guatemala?
When I first started out 25 years ago, I was the community.
Okay, so she was the president,
president,
vice
the guild.
president.
Yes.
Program manager,
Yes,
yeah,
and
the
I
fabric collector.
elected myself every year.
Okay. I'll keep me around.
Yes.
Have you been able to expand quilting? Have you been able to let that see a growth of any kind because of your influence?
Yes. Being an educator, I decided that I would teach everybody about quilting and also about Guatemalan textiles because the people in Guatemala don't appreciate as much as they should. So I've exhibited many times for people to get to know what this is about.
Right.
All right, so
right.
let's look at the next quilt. I love this. I had fun with these little, I don't know what you call them, but they're really fun. I don't know, happy buildings or tree trunks, but I just think it's happy.
These were inspired by the cintas, which are, when you go to the market, you'll see lots of these like linear pieces of woven fabric that women used to wrap
I
their
have
heads.
one.
Yes.
I have
yes.
one. And it's super long, and it's woven.
Exactly.
I have one.
That's exactly it. And so that inspired me to make this wavy, it's called ethnic waves. And yes, that's
all
the
there they
idea.
are.
That's what you see at the market.
Yeah.
And so I used, it also gives me an excuse to use a lot of different tidbits of fabric.
I couldn't cut mine up. I got news for you.
No, but I didn't cut the cintas. I just cut. And you know, that's a very important thing because I do not cut into the traditional textiles.
Okay.
I respect the integrity of the cloth, so I only use commercial fabric.
And now we're kind of running out of time, so let me just say something here. Then you took a break from all of this, and you've come back now because, oh yes, you're principal of a school.
Yes.
It's a private, fabulous school in Guatemala that your family started, and it's time to pass the torch to your family started, so perhaps your son and your daughter, and now you've come back into it, and we're going to look at a piece that's like, okay, you've changed a lot through the whole educational thing.
Yes.
So let's take a look at this piece.
All right, this is the last one?
Yes. This is what I'm making nowadays. I've always been attracted by letters, typography, marks, signs, symbols, and so I'm working in a very improvisational, very spontaneous way. And I love how, I'm really into this. I can't stop.
And you just got back from teaching at Asilomar because you're
Yes.
back on the program,
Yes,
okay?
yeah.
And
I tell you, there's so much more. I have to tell everybody, and I know the time, but
I know.
her work is so well respected in Guatemala that it's hanging in public places,
Yes.
and
Big
it has
public
even been
places.
featured on a stamp in Guatemala.
And a stamp collection, yes.
Oh, on the collection.
Well,
That
look at
is
this.
so
Absolutely.
exciting. So we're going to learn more about you as the day goes on. We're so excited that you're here. And when we come back, Priscilla's going to teach Alex how to take those wonderful Guatemalan textiles and put them with your traditional quilter's cotton fabrics. That's coming up. On the next Quilt Show, the Quilter Laureate of Porterdale, Georgia, Candace Hessen, is here.
after spending nearly 3 decades as a weaver, Candace discovered the joys of quilting and loves putting a twist on traditional blocks.
Candace says she doesn't do difficult, and yet somehow her simple quilts look complex.
Plus, see how a jelly roll inspired her amazing quilt.
Then, Bernina's embroidery expert, Connie Fanders, shows you the joys and wonders of computerized quilting.
Our eyebrows were certainly raised above our readers.
We've got traditional blocks with a twist and brand new technology that will improve your quilting lives.
Ideas and inspiration you'll want to see.
On the next QUILTshow.com.
You know you want to see it.
You do.
Totally.
Really want to see it.
Welcome back. It's my turn with Priscilla. And what we're really going to get into here are the qualities of Guatemalan fabric versus cotton as we know it in the United States. All right. But I want to talk about the New York Museum of Art that you've got a piece in.
Yes. In 2001, the Museum of Arts and Design in New York City acquired one of my pieces for their permanent collection. And the collection is comprised of 50 art quilts from around the world. And the concept is they want to show how quilting, a purely American art and craft, has influenced the world around and has been influenced by other cultures. So the quilt that they acquired is a baby blocks pattern, purely American, but made entirely with Guatemalan fabrics. And that's what they loved because it was a fusion of cultures.
And when did you say that was?
2001.
Oh, from our lips to God's ears, it's happened, right?
It's happened, yes.
Okay, so you have a little bundle here that has my slobber marks on it. And these are Guatemalan fabrics, correct?
That's right. When you talk about Guatemalan fabrics, many people in the U.S. think of a very thick, very like really hard fabric, like for upholstery.
It's not.
No, there are many different kinds and thicknesses and qualities. So I looked all over the place to find the best quality for my own work, and that is the same fabric that I bring to my students when I teach. It's part of the supply list.
Okay, so you are popular. Well, let's talk about mixing and matching cottons as I know it with actually a cotton I'm unfamiliar with, how to work with, okay?
Yeah, quilters are kind of afraid of mixing different thicknesses of fabric together.
And why is that?
Well, I don't know. Maybe because they are not used to it. But in my mix of fabrics, I use a lot of different kinds. And what I do is I take this as a focus fabric. This is a little scrap of a huipil that somebody gifted me.
Okay.
And I will take what's already there, because one of the things with Guatemalan fabrics, they have a lot going on already. They have lots of color, they have texture, patterns. So you really want to keep your designs as simple as possible to make the fabric stand out.
Okay. Well, what is this? Is this needle? I mean, cross stitch or needle point, or what is
It's
that?
hand woven.
Okay.
In
Beautiful.
a technique called brocade.
Okay. All right. Because that's very different than this.
Yes, and
all
that
right?
is thicker. I mean, that is really thick.
Okay. So what about this one? Does this have the same thing going on in the middle?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a piece of a huipil from San Antonio, Aguascalientes. And what I do is I will take the pinks from there, like here and there, and the light green is here, and it's there and there, and the blue, there's a little bit of blue here and there. So I pick what's already there to complement the center and to make everything like a unit.
Okay, so nowadays in quilting, there are a lot of vibrant fabrics like this, right? But when you did it way back, was it difficult to get American fabric with the same vibrancy as what was in Guatemalan?
The thing is that the Guatemalan fabrics are vibrant, but they are not like on your face, shiny.
Okay.
They are saturated, and that's what gives them their character.
And when you say saturated, that would mean almost like pure color?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's,
This is a good example of the mix of fabrics that I use, because we have some commercial here.
Good old cave.
Yes, that's a staple. And then we have wovens, like this is another of caves, and this is another woven. So
And this is American also?
That's American.
Okay.
And I have commercial fabric here and batiks. So I use whatever is available, because I didn't have so much fabric when I started. So I would use a napkin if the fabric was good.
I like your blouse, right?
Oh, yeah, kind of, yes.
Okay, so what is the ratio of, I say American, cotton as we know it versus these
Well,
textiles?
I try to do half and half, because that, like, for example, I always try to put a Guatemalan fabric with an American cotton, so that will even out the thickness of the seams.
Okay, that's interesting. So I'm going to now say that's not what's happening here.
No.
So how do you handle this? Because you've got Guatemalan.
Yes. Then let's go like this.
Okay.
And what I do is I usually press seams open.
Okay.
And when I have, like here, the Guatemalan fabric, I press it towards the lighter fabric.
Because it's this, I mean, it is stronger. It's a stronger fabric.
Yes.
And so it's going to win.
Yeah, it's gonna win.
Yeah.
And you know, many times, now that you say that, many times, I just let the fabric tell me how to iron it. And because it knows where to go.
But I like the idea that if you've got two that are butt up, that you press open.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I press them to submission.
Exactly. You get down there.
Yes.
Look at the. Okay, so from where I come, I would be inclined to want to face it, because this is a looser weave than, say, what we've got going on here. Do you ever face it?
No, I don't. I never use anything. I don't use starch either.
What? Really?
I use a lot of steam, though.
Okay.
Because that keeps them very in their place. Now, the thing is that they are a looser weave that makes them a little bit harder to work with, but at the same time, that's a great advantage because they are very fudgeable. So
Okay.
you can stretch them to where you want them to be.
And then what about this little guy? You've got all this big thing, and then you got this little guy on the corner.
Yes,
No, little girl. It's a girl.
I like to mix and match also a very precise block with something very cutty, wampusy, funky.
Okay.
thing.
And then last of the big ones. Now this one seems more regular cotton.
Well, there's some flannel in here.
Oh, okay.
And commercial fabrics again. So, and I do love pattern.
Really?
Yeah, I rarely ever. I
didn't know that.
I rarely ever use solids.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah.
they are like too plain for me.
Now look at these babies. Look at these babies.
Oh yes. Again, it's the same principle. I had these small, tiny scraps of Guatemalan woven huipiles, and I use them as the center. And again, it's a log cabin.
So when I take a class from you, if I do, I will behave.
Okay.
Do you start us on something small, or do you start us on something large? Do you like have at it, or what do you do?
Well, I usually start with something very simple,
Okay.
and little by little, I like to teach classes that are at least 4 or 5 days long, because then I can show you the process and take you by the hand and guide you throughout your own process.
Okay, now there is a reason that you are familiar with America, and it started with your grandpa, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. My grandfather was a politician back in the 1920s on my dad's side. And he was named the Minister of Guatemala, which was the ambassador to the U.S.
Wow.
Yes, yeah. So
Wow.
he moved here with his family, and he had 7 kids at the time. And after a year and a half, there was a coup back home, and they said to him, don't come back.
Don't come home, yeah.
So, to make a long story short, they stayed on exile for 12 years. And that's when my dad was born in Ventura, California in 1925. And then in 1933, the family was finally able to go back to Guatemala. And my dad, I mean, he spoke English before he spoke Spanish.
Okay.
And he told all these funny stories of how his cousins would make him say things. And
Now you were born in Guatemala, though.
I was born in Guatemala,
but there
born
was
and raised.
definitely
yes.
the Western influence at that
Yeah,
point.
my
Okay.
family is very Americanized because of
Okay.
that, and we know
Okay.
a bit about your culture a lot.
Love this. Now, what about this? Okay, this is all pieced, but what's this little zigzag stuff doing on top?
Oh, that's always my last resort. I applique.
Okay.
When nothing else works, I applique.
When all else fails.
Yes.
Okay, here's another. And we're
Yes.
going to get to your letters in a little bit because that's your
Okay.
new passion,
Yes,
okay?
yes.
Same thing. Priscilla, come on, girl. Who's your
I just-
favorite American designer?
Oh, that's a very hard question because there are so many that are so good. But
You're a daughter of a diplomat, granddaughter or whatever, great granddaughter. Beautiful.
I love this because I wanted to make a center that was lighter and brighter. And I'm going to put these together somehow, all of these.
Oh, hey, what have you learned through your travels? Because you have traveled a lot.
Yes. Well, travels do change you. And my aesthetics have changed throughout my quilting career. I used to do things and like things that were very straight and like perfect looking. And nowadays, I'm much more inclined to the improv, the spontaneous.
Which is what's going on over here.
Yes.
Okay, let's take a look at that.
I remember
Letters. I want to look at the quilt again with the letters on it, so we can
Yes.
dial it in there and bring it
Exactly.
down to that. Okay, there we go.
And so I love to make letters nowadays, and I just put 2 pieces of fabric together, cut free-form the shape of the letters, and then I get a positive and a negative. And I love to play with all the positive and negative areas that each letter has, because they do things when you put them together.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
create new shapes and new lines, which I really love. Like, here's another example.
I just think these are great.
They're
Just great. We did not talk about this question. I don't want to say you left the quilting scene, but you had to become a principal.
Yes.
And so you were traveling and teaching and all that, and now your heart is calling you back to what you were doing before.
Yeah.
When you step back in, not back in, but do you feel that quilting has changed a lot?
Well, I find two things that are very interesting. One of them, because I left the quilting scene for 10 or 11 years.
Right.
There are many more men quilting nowadays.
Oh, okay.
Which I find fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's a very good thing.
Improv, I mean, is there more improv and stuff going on now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there's a lot more.
Because your alphabet quilt is clearly different than your earlier pieces. And,
Yes.
not one is better than the other, but it has changed. And I was wondering if stepping back in at a later date, if that happened.
The thing is that throughout my life, I've experimented with many different arts and crafts. And I have a 3-year degree, college degree in visual arts.
Oh.
And the major there was graphic design. So I've loved letters forever. And so now I'm like back because 10 years ago I discovered that many Guatemalan traditional textiles have letters in them.
Oh, interesting.
And sometimes they say a message, but sometimes they are just there for decoration.
Okay.
That's how I like to use
And what
them.
I'm going to say right now is that if you are drooling to learn more about this, perhaps firsthand, you're going to learn more about that when we come back.
We are having a great day with Priscilla Bianchi, and
Yes.
I am really excited because you have now turned into one of my favorite human dynamos.
Oh, my goodness.
Gosh. And one of the things that I loved in the break, we were talking about that you like a good challenge, and when you started quilting and you come up and you're talking to other quilters and they're all going, no stripes, I don't know, I don't want to use the stripes, I kind of don't like the stripes, and you go,
There's a challenge if I ever saw one.
and I will tell you, what we've just done in rehearsal has got me spinning with ideas as well.
Good.
So let's talk about striped fabrics. You know the Guatemalan fabric uses a lot of stripes,
Yes.
but there's also a lot of stripes in our quilting quilt shops, right?
Yes, there are many. You have to look for them, but there they are.
All right.
And because of the way they are woven, Guatemalan fabrics have a lot of stripes in them. So for me, it was a very natural step to start working with stripes. And I've devised a couple of methods that are very easy to follow. So the first one is you get 2 squares of the same size, 2 striped, one Guatemalan, one commercial. You stack them up and you slice the 2 diagonal lines.
Right, and you might use a ruler to do that, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, all right. So, and then my next question is, do you always keep the stripes going the same way for this particular technique?
I do, yes.
Okay, all right. And then my third question is, or I don't know if that was second, third, or fourth, or fifth, but my next question is, when you do that for this quilt, all of these squares are the same size, but it doesn't matter what size.
It doesn't matter what size, because as long as you cut all of your squares the same size, they will all fit together at the end without the seam allowances.
All right, so we've done that here. They've been
Yes.
cut, all right?
Yeah, they've been cut. So this is where the magic begins, because when you cut it, then you get, you go like this, and you get 2 triangles with the lines going horizontally along the base
Right.
of the triangle, and 2 triangles with the lines vertically through the apex of
Okay.
the triangles.
All right.
And then you get to do this.
Wow.
And you get your beautiful
Look at
square
that.
in a square. And you put these 2 here.
And you get this kind of crisscross.
Yes.
Look at that. Immediately, I mean, that's just, if nothing else, we could stop right now and people could start making quilts.
Exactly.
But it's
Talk
gonna-
about instant gratification.
Gratification.
Yes.
All right, and you've got one other sample right here. Let me pull these
well,
over.
no, it's with those.
Oh, it's with these,
Still
all right.
with these. Because you chose 2 fabrics, you might not be too happy with them, so you can cut more squares and make some kind of variation.
Right.
I always cut more pieces than I need because then I can play and choose whatever I really like. And one last thing is, if you don't like this strong red stripe there
Oh, I
because it's
see
like
that.
kind of unbalanced, this is the beauty of Guatemalan fabrics.
You can
just
flip
flip
it right over.
and there's more balance, and it's perfect. And you don't need to cut left and right pieces. You just cut everything the same, and it's real easy.
That's great. I want to hear a big woohoo from everybody already. Woo! All right, so let's go to number 2.
Okay, now this is my other method. You choose any shape you want. The first part is on paper.
Okay.
You draw your shape and in the size that you want, and then you divide it. However you want to divide it. I'll give you a couple of examples.
Okay.
And then this will be your template.
So this is a 4-patch. You've decided the finished size, and you're using one of those squares. You've added the 1/4 inch around it, so that becomes your template
Exactly.
for what we're going to do.
Yes.
All right.
Because I like my students to be able to make whatever they want to make. And so then you need to choose the direction of the stripes. So in this case, we're going to cut them on the diagonal. And then you have the 4 squares, lines cut on the diagonal. And then
Would you look at that?
you reconstruct.
Okay. Now, I'm
square.
already going to go, how particular do you have to be about the seams and matching?
Well, that's one thing that quilters think they have to match, but it's not necessary. I mean, if you want them to match, you can pin and be very careful, but if not, you can even use different fabrics within the same block.
Sure.
And even if the stripes don't match, your brain will make the connection.
I get it. Yeah, I do. All right. So
Here's another example for you to try.
Oh, does it matter how I do it?
No.
So, all right, so I'm going to kind of make a diamond out of it. I'm going to
Yes.
put all the greens to the middle. Is that
And
okay?
yes. And it depends on what fabric you use and where you cut it. And voila,
Okay.
you get this wonderful diamond.
Well, what if, I'm just asking, what if I did this? Can I do that?
Yes.
Did I do that too soon, or is that even an option?
Let me
Oh, she's
give
going to,
this
oh,
another turn.
oh.
Like,
Oh, you going to flip it over?
let me see.
Are you going to,
Oh,
are you going to
there.
do that?
Yes.
So that these
There it
come
is.
in like that?
So with the exact same pieces, you can make square in a square or squares on point. And if you shuffle them a little bit more, you get these X shapes.
Okay, all right.
So the variations are endless. As I was saying
Look at
before, it
that.
depends on what fabric you choose. And even if you have a fabric that has like different colored stripes, if you cut them here, you'll get one type of square. If you cut them in the middle or on the edge, you will be getting lots of different variations.
Look at that.
And I like to mix the width of the stripes as well.
All right. And now the black and white that you're showing is kind of the guide to say this is what that stripe is doing.
Exactly.
And now when you go into the fabrics, you get all of these variations. All right. So what's the next magic trick?
Okay. The next magic trick is using the same basic shape, the square. You draw it first on paper, and now we're going to divide it in the diagonal. And again, you add the seam allowances, and this will be your template.
Okay.
Okay. So
Now, as you bring it over, I'm just going to say you can do this in many different sizes. This is the example of how you do it,
Yes.
but these examples are done in many different sizes and not
Yes.
just this size.
Yeah.
Okay?
And now you have the third step is to decide the direction of the stripes. In this case, we're going to cut them horizontally along the base of the triangle. If you cut your 4 pieces the same, you're going to get something like that.
Wow. Okay.
And here are a couple other examples. And you can see how different they are because of the fabric.
Okay, so we were talking in rehearsal about this. And is it a good time to go over and show
Yes,
this?
yes.
Because I was a little bit like, yeah, but what about the leftover fabric? And you explained this to me, so we decided to find some fabric in the studio. And tell us what needs to happen with this
Okay.
template.
the thing is that if you cut one triangle and then another and another, you're going to be wasting a lot of fabric on the other side. So what I do is I cut this way, and then I turn it around and cut this one on the other side and come back here like a zigzaggy thing.
Okay.
And then I will...
Oh, I'm going to cut this
Yes.
because we're going to cut this so that what am I trying to say? That the strip that we're going to use is the height of the triangle.
Yes.
All right, and now I'm cutting through the template, which I don't want to do, of course. And slide that down. Oh, it's a little bit sticky. Sorry, everybody. I am a professional. All right, and then, so now I'm going to guess on this, and I'm not going to try to be super precise, but you would have measured. I'm going to try to go right through the middle of that purple
I mean, the height of the triangle is the width of your strip.
Right, okay, so.
Because we're trying to be as efficient when cutting as possible.
All right.
And I don't have much access to fabric, so I try, when I have some beautiful fabric, I try to use it, I mean, all up.
All right, so
and
everybody,
not waste anything.
don't do as I do as I say. Get your ruler out. But I think I can be a little bit quicker with this if I flip this back and forth and just cut.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't get that side. All right, so I think,
That's how I do it.
okay. So the ultimate thing here is making sure that, well, here's where my problem was on this. It wasn't a problem. It was a mental confusion on how do you get those to match like they're matching over there. And in
Okay.
order to do that, you have to take the triangles from the same side of the strip, right?
Exactly. If you want your 4 pieces to be the same and to match, the 4 triangles on one edge will be exactly the same, and the other 4 on the other side will be exactly the same. So you are getting a lot of mileage out of one strip of fabric.
Yep.
And you're making 2 similar but different looking squares.
Sure.
And the thing is that when you put them on your quilt, no one notices what's with them, but somehow they belong together and
All right, so
everything matches.
I'm taking all of these triangles to go here.
You're good.
Well, I'm not so good because we didn't have a lot of striped fabrics,
Yes.
but this square would obviously be a little bit different, and because I don't have enough left over, it's not gonna fit in there because it's
But you
it's
get the
partly
idea.
there. Yeah, you
Yeah.
get the idea that would come on in and
Exactly,
do that.
yes.
So you could get 2 sets of different triangles out of one strip,
Yes.
but you need to use the same on each side in order to get this effect.
Exactly.
All right, and I needed.
And all you have left are these little pieces.
Yeah, it's
so-
very efficient.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
especially
it's
if
really quick.
especially if we get addicted to Guatemalan fabric, we
You want
want to
to
use
use up
every bit of it.
Every millimeter
All right,
of fabric.
all right. So let's go on
Okay.
from here.
Now, one of the great things about this, cutting the pieces like that, is, okay, one choice is to cut all 4 pieces the same, but there's a lot of variety that you can achieve by cutting different fabrics, different pieces from different fabrics. So, for example, you can do half and half.
Oh wow, yeah.
So, and that's a completely different effect, and you get this wonderful diagonal going places.
And
in,
it can
in
do
your
things
quilt.
in your quilt.
Exactly. There's another example.
I have to believe that you work on a design wall and just put these up and
Oh,
just let it
yes.
speak to you and move them around and shift them
Exactly.
around.
And you could not do this without a design wall, because
Okay.
that's where, visually you can step back and see what you're doing, and
Right,
that's...
have a margarita.
Oh, yeah.
Right, yeah.
That always helps. Okay.
All right, so there's 4 different fabrics this time.
Yes.
So you really can shake it up and let your lights and darks and everything play
Yes.
in there.
And I always like to choose fabrics like this one, for example, that have like sparks of light in them, because that gives a very nice effect to the whole quilt.
Give you some playground there.
Okay, let's say this one. And here, these are very good examples of stripes that do not match. And yet,
Right, but yet the impact is the same, right? It's
yeah.
just boom.
yeah, which is what we want. We
Yeah,
want
yeah.
high impact.
Look at that. Well, that is visual eye candy. All right, let's do one more. We've got time to do one more, and
Okay.
I want to show this because it's really, it shakes it up a little bit more,
Yes.
all right? So
Oh,
let
yeah.
me move these out of the way and let you get your playground going over there.
Okay, this is one that I love. I think diamonds are one of my most
Well,
favorite
Diamonds
geometric
are a
shapes.
girl's best friend.
Well, that too. And so we have the shape of the diamond. They can be long and skinny or short and chubby. However you want to draw them, it's okay, as long as all of the diamonds in your quilt are exactly the same. And then we divide it by 4 because we want the stripes going this way and going around the
Okay,
diamond.
okay.
So I love to make stripes do things and travel places. So let's say this is my template.
Okay, yep.
Okay, and you cut your pieces. I always cut more pieces than I know I will need, just because I want to have that freedom of choice.
Oh my gosh, I know that Alex is salivating over here, and she's gonna be buying some Guatemalan fabric, and I am too, and we're gonna be playing.
Oh yes, it is too much fun almost. Okay.
Look at that.
Then you have this one, for example, this bright. And you see I use a lot of different widths.
Well, I
of
really like
stripes.
that this one's kind of green and blue, and this one's kind of magenta, but it's not the same on each side.
No, it's not the same. And if this is too bright for you, you can always
You
choose
could
something
make
more
it,
muted.
yeah.
And the other
Wow.
great thing is on the way, because I live away from mainstream quilting, and I thought at first that was a great disadvantage, but it is a great advantage because I had to devise my own methods.
Absolutely.
So to put this
yeah.
together, you would not sew the whole diamond, you would sew in rows.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes,
Yeah,
of
so
course.
it's
Yes,
so much
yes, yes,
easier
yes.
to make.
And these could be actually,
Exactly.
yeah, they could be assembled more like this, right?
Yeah.
So that this is a row that you're
Exactly,
working on. So
yes.
there's another reason for the design wall.
Oh, yes.
So-
yeah, you couldn't make it without one.
Priscilla, we could go on, and I know you have more to show, but oh my gosh, that is eye candy beyond measure, and I think that this has really opened my eyes. I can't remember out of our 400 quilt shows that we've talked about stripes and shown the versatility of what they can do,
Yes.
so I really appreciate that.
That's a really good word for it, versatility.
It is versatile.
Yes.
Now, we're not going anywhere. You're still with us. And when we
Yes.
come back, we're going to talk more about Guatemalan textiles, but also you have a tour.
Oh,
And
yes.
you
yes.
can go. So this is kind of an annual thing, and we'll talk about that when we come back.
Okay.
Welcome back, everyone. Priscilla, that was just magic. You guys playing with the stripes and all that?
I'm already addicted.
I know,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's very exciting.
Now, if I had a do-over with our segment, I would have added in, how do I care for this fabric? What do I do? Is it going to run all over? What do we do?
Okay, you do have to pre-wash. I mean, any Guatemalan fabric you buy, you need to pre-wash because it will shrink about a 6%.
Okay.
And it will run in the sense that, I mean, it'll release a lot of excess dye. So you have to get that out of the way before you even cut into them or put them into quilts.
And then press after it's dry? Dry in
Ye-
the dryer?
Yes,
And
I
press?
dry it in the dryer at the lowest temperature so it
Okay.
doesn't shrink more than it
Oh,
should.
okay, okay.
Yeah, but you can wash it in the washing machine.
Okay,
And
cool.
I like to use a product like Retain or a color
perfect.
fixative.
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then once it's in your quilt, you just leave it.
It'll last forever. It's
Okay.
very durable, and then nothing. I mean, it's the first wash that's the one.
Oh, that's important.
Okay,
Yes.
cool.
Okay.
And here is this thing I got all excited about. What's it called again?
It's cinta de aguacatán.
And these, I mean, look how long everybody it is. And the women wrap it around their hair, right?
Yes.
Not your hair.
No,
Or mine.
it's too short.
But look at this, it's beautiful. I mean, just beautiful.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
and then, but we have to get in close on it because it's not just a printed pattern. This is all stitched, everyone. So take a look at all of these stitches, and they're in little sections. And you said this is a nice one, right?
Yes, because I mean, I think if I had to choose one traditional textile, it would be this one to inspire me because I mean, every little segment could be a quilt.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit more about the traditional textiles and how it is incorporated into the culture and how it might be different from place to place.
Yes. One of the great, I mean, Guatemalan tradition, textile tradition is one of the best in the world. And one of the reasons is because it's a live tradition. It's everyday wear for indigenous people. And so wherever you go, you will see people in the markets, on the streets with their costume, with their beautiful costumes.
But they're not costumes. It's what they wear.
Yeah.
Right.
In Spanish, we call them traje,
Okay.
which is like a suit.
Okay,
all right.
okay.
Yes,
But
trajes.
I mean, I've traveled the world and I've been to places like Germany, or if you're in Holland, you'll see people in their traditional outfits, but generally it's like on a special holiday or a traditional day. It's not every day, but you're saying it's every day.
Yes, it's
Okay.
every day. And to every town that you go, people will be wearing kind of the same patterns, color schemes, style of dress, because you can identify where a person is from just by looking at the way they are dressed.
Really?
Wow, interesting,
Yes, yeah.
interesting.
I guess that's kind of like Scotland with
With their
kilts.
pl-
I mean,
that's
you
right.
know who
Something
they
like
belong
that.
Yeah,
to.
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Wow.
All right, well, here we go. You give tours.
I know. I conduct textile tours to Guatemala. And I didn't set out to do tours, but as I started traveling around the world to exhibit my work and teach about Guatemalan textiles, my own students started saying, oh, I want to go, I want to see for myself. So I thought, well, there's an opportunity. So I started organizing the tours. And they are wonderful. Everybody who's come on the tours just falls in love with Guatemala.
What kind of things do you do?
Well, one of the first things we do is go to the Textile Museum in Guatemala City. So you get an overview of our textile tradition and the use of natural dyes and things like that, which gives you like a really good start. And then we go for lunch at my home.
Oh,
and,
that's nice.
And have an insider's view of my studio. And that's always, they say, I mean, the people on the tour say that's one of
Do
the
you
highlights.
stay?
Oh, of
do you stay in
course.
Guatemala City?
We do. We stay for a couple of days in Guatemala City at
But
the
I mean, the whole
hotel.
tour.
No, we move from place to place. The basic tour is 7 days, and we go to Antigua, to Lake Atitlan, which is one of the most beautiful lakes in the world with wonderful volcanoes as the backdrop.
Wow.
And we go to the open market at Chichicastenango, which is very famous.
And so if a person were to go and they were to see a textile like this that you're wearing, you better buy it because you're going to go to another region and it's not going to be there.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because there's so much variety. There's like hundreds of different huipiles and trajes.
Okay. Now, I want to talk about you have mindfulness 15 minutes a day.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Okay. It started 8 years ago as a way to manage anxiety. And I really like it, and it stuck with me. And during the pandemic, I had the time to study, and I have become now a teacher of mindfulness, and I love it. So it's like a yin-yang kind of
Teach
thing.
me mindfulness in a paragraph.
In 30
Well,
seconds.
the thing, mindfulness teaches you to pay attention to the here and now. So the first anchor is your breathing. So you relate to your breathing and you like don't think of anything else, and then pay attention to your senses, to what you're seeing, what you're hearing. Like sounds are really very calming and relaxing. And the way I use it in my work is I am much more aware of colors and the way that colors have an impact on me. Or maybe I'm working on a quilt and I'm bored and I'm like, okay, I won't do this anymore. Maybe I'll come back to it later. But it keeps you like, it makes you enjoy life so much more.
So even spending those 15 minutes, it carries throughout the day?
Yes, yes. And that's the idea. The more you practice, the more you put, like this becomes part of your way of life.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like that.
I like that
Yeah.
too.
Well, let's talk about your book.
It's
all right?
beautiful.
Because this is a beautiful book. This is Guatemala art quilts, and oh my gosh, I mean, you've put it together. Alex, can you help me with
Oh,
that?
absolutely,
side?
sorry.
And I just want to thumb through this a little bit because the images and
Are these
the-
all your quilts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
I've done about 160 quilts so far.
Wow.
And they are all in the book. It's a
Who
compilation.
published this? Who published it?
It's a Guatemalan publisher.
Okay. Okay. Look at that.
But we
Where
wanted.
could somebody find this book?
Well, you can buy it through Amazon in my store.
Is this the one that is in the museum?
Yes, in the
Wow.
New York Museum.
Wonderful.
And I wanted it to be like an art book for art,
It is.
art and design lovers, for lovers of Guatemala, of color, of textiles. So it appeals to many different people.
Okay. Is there anything you can't do? Is there anything that stops you in your tracks?
Well, I have to be honest. I hate to quilt.
Oh,
You mean physically quilt?
I
Like
mean,
quilting the quilt.
Quilting the quilt and hauling that big thing around the machine. I really don't like that.
I remember when I did too, actually.
yeah.
I don't anymore, but yeah. So all right, but thinking to that, so then do you have, how do you get them quilted?
Okay, I piece the tops and I piece the backing, and I send it to my good friend Laura Lee Fritz.
oh, in America.
In Sonoma, she's now in
Yeah, yeah,
California.
yeah.
And she quilts them for me.
That's
and in
lovely.
fact, my quilts are much better because she quilts them. Because
Okay.
she's an artist in her own
yes,
right.
she is.
It's a whole nother thing,
So
to
it's
be
a
honest. It
completely
really
different
is.
set of skills.
So, okay, when people sign up for your tour, I got to dial back to that. What are they most curious about?
Well, I guess how far is Guatemala from the States? And it's from Miami, it's 2 hours and 15-hour flight, so it's really
15
close.
minutes, 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Oh yes, 2 hours and 15 minutes. And from Houston, it's like 3.5 hour
So it's
flight.
close.
You know-
so it's very close.
You know something that just came to mind when I was a little girl, there were always sister cities that cities had. Livermore, where I live, was Guatemala.
Ah.
You know, I just thought of that.
Well, and I'm going to go back to this because these are questions people will want to know.
Yes.
I am trying to sell your tour because I want to go, but I want to go before everybody else goes. Safety, is it safe?
Yes.
Ooh, all right.
Okay. What I say to that is that we take care of you from the moment you step at the airport. We come pick you up. You'll stay at the hotel where my quilts are on the lobby. So, and it is safe like any other place in the world in the sense that there are places that you go at certain times of day, or you have to be wary of your surroundings.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
typical
Yeah,
with
yeah, yeah.
travel.
Period.
And then the second one, everybody is going to come home talking about more than the textiles, more than anything. They're going to talk about food. So tell us about
Oh
food.
yes, Guatemalan food is known for it's delicious. It's made from scratch every single day, and we have these rich sauces like moles and recados, which are tomato based, and it's really very, very delicious.
All right, so I'm looking
and-
for my wallet. I want to give you a credit card.
Well, this has been absolutely delightful, and everybody involved, people don't know, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes here.
Yeah.
Everybody has just been smacked by you.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right, and you're tired of explaining one thing. This is the caveat. You're tired of people asking you what you do.
Well, that's right. Because when I started 25 years ago, people in Guatemala had no clue what a quilt was, or very few people. So they would ask me, "What are you doing now?" And I would say, "Well, I'm cutting little pieces of fabric and sewing them back together to create designs." And I got tired of explaining so much. So finally, one day, somebody asked me, "What are you doing nowadays?" And I just said, "I'm a stripper." End of conversation.
End of conversation. Nothing else to explain. Everybody, we have had such a fun time today. I mean, seriously, it's been really fun. And my takeaway is not only how versatile stripes can be,
Oh, yeah.
because sometimes we do shy away from them, but just learning about a culture that is rich in textiles, and I'm enticed to go. So thank you for your wonderful presentation today.
Oh, and thank you for having me.
Super fun, super fun.
Yes, it's-
So let's do it. So remember, everyone, it's a new day.
Todos los días.
Beautiful.